How are you?
Good.
Excellent. Actually, I recently met you. There was a wonderful summit put together by our good friend Dr. O and George Assad, and it was called the World Energy Forum, high-level conference on energy at the United Nations, happened on September 17th, 2010. Gregory, I believe you were a spokesperson there?
Yes.
Okay. And tell us, you're actually a accomplished man in many rights in many areas, and it's a big honor for us to get to talk to you, and thank you for allowing us to. You're a doctor, is an entrepreneur and a scientist, and who in October 2005 became the third private citizen to make a self-funded trip into space and orbit the Earth on the International Space Station. And you do some beautiful angel investing for organizations. You're concerned about young people, about women, about minorities. A well-rounded man, grew up here in New York City, in Brooklyn, where our studio is, I believe, and it's a big honor to get to speak with you. But let's start off with, you have a book, By Any Means Necessary, An Entrepreneur's Journey into Space. Recounts the author's life story, culminating in a visit to outer space. So give us a little bit of background on yourself, please.
Well, that's why I wrote the book, to kind of recapitulate everything that happened. I started out, nobody in my high school would think I'd be in the position I am now, because I was born in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, but I grew up in northern New Jersey in Ridgefield Park, and I was kind of a typical 50s greaser. Screw up in school, got suspended a couple of times, got in trouble with the police. I failed trigonometry. These aren't the things that really mark someone for success.
Are they? No.
But somehow I muddled through it, and like I say in the book, the recipe is just don't give up. And that includes don't give up on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I muddled through, and by age 60, I got to go to space. So I must have done something right.
Who told you not to give up? Was there some influence in your life that you feel you can attribute that to?
I don't know if anyone ever said that to me specifically. I think I just sort of realized it in my gut. It was like going to college. Even though, my parents and my father was actually very influential to steer me into going to college. But, when I got out of high school, I was thinking maybe join the Army, join my father's electricians union. College wasn't high on my list. But somehow, I had always been pushed that, hey, Greg, you're a smart kid, you should go to college, and you grow up hearing that. And unfortunately, my sisters didn't hear it, because they went on to be bank tellers and things like that. My youngest sister, Nancy, who was the best student of all of us, eventually went to nursing school. But back in those days, girls didn't go to college for the most part. Only the boys did, and it was that kind of pressure that kind of kept me going on. And I realized, like people say, showing up is a lot of life. It's like I wasn't the best baseball player in the world, but, I showed up for Little League practice and got to play.
Let me ask you, since you are, I will call you a scientist, and you have like 12 patents, and you, for very important thoughts and concepts for helping the world here. But you did mention one thing to me. I grew up in the shoe business. My dad had a shoe store, but I couldn't spell, and I went into show business. And so that was my little, 10-cent joke here. But the fact is that I liked show business. But what I did I liked a lot of the aspects of what my dad had, which was the business sense and the marketing sense and the fixing the windows, a little shoe store up in Tarrytown, okay? And so I admired it. I probably also, my dad said, here, take the store. And I said, no, I want to go into show business. Now I go back to the big shoe company and say, hey, will you sponsor my show? No. But in any case, your dad, you did mention, and that's the only reason I'm bringing it up, it was electrical, right. And that's, so was there a bunch of wires hanging out in your house, and was your dad a handy-dandy dude?
Oh, yeah, he was handy. And, I mean, I learned at a very early age it was a sin to ever hire someone to fix it.
So, in essence, that is a big deal. That probably is part of your upbringing, right? Go. So, I just ask you about. Well, you had just made a comment about to hire somebody it's like a sin in your house. So your dad was a handy dandy guy, and do you get the ability, the opportunity to plug in some of those wires yourself?
Oh yeah, I mean, from a little kid, I would help him. I would hold the wire while he twisted together, and I just had a sense of about electricity. Most people grow up fearing electricity, and I guess I got to, be real comfortable and friendly with it. And to this day, I still do a lot of stuff like that. A lot of my investments are in the electrical power area now, and I own a Tesla, and when I got the charging unit to charge up the battery, I installed it myself. So I still enjoy doing that stuff, and kind of grew up with it. And I guess I went from when I was a kid, I wanted to be an electrician, and then a TV repairman, and then kind of an electrical engineer, and then a scientist. I kind of graduated.
And one of your big businesses was a fiber optic, right? Detector manufacturer.
Yep. Yes.
So, and then it says a near infrared camera manufacturer. Why it wasn't far away? What is near infrared?
Well, far infrared or conventional infrared are pictures generated by heat. In other words, when you actually see the heat being emitted from the body. Near infrared means it's very close to red, so it's almost visible light. And our camera actually sees reflected light, either sunlight or starlight, but it's the light that the eye can't see. So it actually has application in night vision. Just the ambient light from either stars or actually atomic reactions that go on in the air are enough to enable people to be seen at night with the Sensors Unlimited camera. So it's obviously used for night vision and any kind of applications like that.
What is that infrared on a regular camera where the red light goes off and supposedly keeps your eyes open?
That's real red light. Yeah, that's not infrared light, but
okay.
Just
Interesting.
to eliminate red eye.
The red eye.
Yeah.
There you go. Now, your interest in encourage children, especially minorities and females, consider careers in science and engineering. So how are you getting out there and helping in that way?
Well, I just give as many talks as I can. I've visited almost 400 schools and community groups. And, engineering was the way up for me. I mean, how did I get here? And being able to talk to you on this show. It's really from my engineering background that enabled all this stuff. And what's nice about engineering, it's not about how you're dressed and how you speak and whether you have an accent or not. It's about, can you do the work? So it's often for immigrants, it's been a quick way up, and for almost anyone. So wherever there's kind of a glass ceiling, engineering is a good way around that. Certainly women and minorities are very unrepresented in the engineering field, and believe me, those fields are wide open for anyone who can get the degree and do the work. You'll find yourself welcomed, and especially in those two positions, you'll find those fields very welcome.
Excellent. Now, you got a postdoctorate study at the University of Port Elizabeth, South Africa, right?
Yes.
And now you have some wine business in South Africa. Were they tied in together?
Yeah. Well, that's how I lived in South Africa for a year and a half during the apartheid years.
Wow.
And believe me, I'm as surprised as anybody else that they got to as peaceful a settlement as they actually did. But I'm both amazed and pleased that it happened. But I got to know and love the country in 1971 and 72, and I used to go back every few years. So, once I was successful with Sensors Unlimited, I just fell in love with this winery that's located in the town of Paarl, which is near Cape Town. And, I go there a couple of times a year, and I spend most of February there because that's harvest time. And I just love the land, and I love making wine.
You step on the grapes?
No, we actually have a mechanical corkscrew that does that. Yeah.
It's a good thing. So
Yeah.
things are well. You've taught elementary physics and classes, and you worked at RCA Labs, the Sarnoff Center, right, for some bunch of years, right?
Right.
That probably was an interesting job, working over there.
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely. I just, I love the whole thing.
It's all good. So let's talk space now. So you actually went out in space, and what was that like? First of all, what inspired you to do it? Because it was self-funded.
Yeah, well, you need three things to do that, and obviously you need the resources to pay for it, right? And you need the high interest to do it. The third thing that keeps a lot of people from doing it is the time. I put the better part of 2 years in preparing for that. It wasn't all training and so forth, but it's just, the negotiation, the back and forth, going to Russia and so forth. But it had its genesis, believe it or not, at a Starbucks cafe in Princeton.
Mm-hmm.
It's a true story. That's usually where you can find me in the morning, drinking a cup of coffee. I read a newspaper article about space adventures and how they could take people up into space, and it really was a wow moment. Hey, I would love to do this. So I left Starbucks, and I got on the internet, looked up space adventures, and next thing I know, I'm training and going to space. Now, I'm leaving out months and months of detail, but that's how the idea was initiated.
And you did it.
Yeah. And again, I had a lot of setbacks. I was in training for 2 months in Russia. I had a medical issue. I got rejected from the program, and that was devastating. It was a minor medical issue, a small lung ailment that went away. And I tried to get back in the program, and the Russians said, "Niet." And I came back with x-rays and doctor's notes, and they said, "Niet, niet." And, for 9 months I kept knocking on the door, and they refused me. But I wouldn't give up, and finally, they let me back in, and I got to go to space.
Now, I thought when we met actually at one of your home here in the city, and I recollect you saying something about that they had you. Did you have to go out of the space? I don't know if I heard that correctly, but didn't you have to do something a little bit unusual when you were on the spacecraft?
Well, I did some. Actually, I had a big scientific program planned, and it's a long story. I wasn't able. I wanted to bring our camera up, and I wanted to grow crystals, and I wasn't, for procedural reasons, I ultimately wasn't able to do them. But I did medical experiments for the European Space Agency while I was up there. What I may have told you about was on our descent, when we were re-entering the atmosphere, we had an air leak.
Yeah.
And one of my jobs was to open the oxygen valve, which was very difficult to do when you're tumbling through space. But, again, I hung on to that valve, and I said, I don't care if my arm falls off. I'm not letting go of this.
It's a heck of an experience. Were you scared to, at any point there, that maybe you had made the wrong move here?
Honestly, I wasn't, because this is something I really wanted to do. And I remember when we were tumbling through space and we had that air leak and the alarm went off, and I just said, look, we've been trained for this, and we'd rehearsed this many times. I know what to do. 100 people have done this before me. We're going to make it. I just didn't have any doubts.
All right.
And, if I was scared, I wouldn't have done it. Why would you pay to be frightened and do something you don't want to do?
I don't know. People go to horror movies.
Yeah.
So how's the book doing? By any means necessary.
Very good. I'm getting a lot of favorable comments on it. And, I hope if people, like I have in the introduction, my view of myself, and this is really true, average guy makes good. And, if anything, I'd like people to read it and say, hey, if this guy can do it, maybe I can do it too.
Well, I love that kind of thinking. It's a very important thinking to share, and you're open to share it, and that's, I think, also extremely important, because when people do good like this, I think it's very important to let the world know. And let the world know why you're doing it, because it inspires. It's not a ego trip. It's a shared life, with the world around. It's a great thing. Congratulations to you, Gregory.
Thank you.
It's all good. I'm going to ask you one last question, and I look forward to speaking with you again. What's good news for you? Personally, professionally, however you want to think on it.
Good news is for me is knowing my daughters, my 6 grandkids are happy and well.
Yeah.
That's the best news I can get.
Okay. I can appreciate that big time. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking some time to speak with us, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.